The first thing Commander Zyrek noticed was that the human was still smiling. The second thing he noticed was that the human was missing an arm. The battlefield was silent except for the distant crackling of plasma fires. Shattered mechs lay in heaps, their innards sparking, some leaking coolant onto the charred ground. Zyrek's troops had stopped firing minutes ago, frozen in place by the sheer impossibility of what they were witnessing. The human should have been dead. It wasn't just the arm. There were at least 3 cauterized holes through his torso, one where his second heart should have been if he had 2. Which, of course, he didn't. It made even less sense why he was still moving. Still grinning, Zyrek's translator stuttered, struggling to process the guttural sounds the human was making. Laughter. It was laughter. The human lifted his remaining hand and wiped the blood from his lips, as if he had just finished a particularly good meal. "Not bad," he rasped, his voice hoarse. "Could use more kick, though." Zyrek took a step back. A mistake. The human's eyes flicked downward, noticing the movement. A predator recognizing weakness. For a moment, Zyrek regretted signing up for this campaign. He had thought humans were, like any other pre-FTL species inducted into the Galactic Dominion, primitive, barely worth noting, useful only for their resources and cheap labor. They had no real fleets, no centralized planetary defense grid, no history of interstellar war. So why, Zyrek wondered, had the Dominion's database marked Earth with a classification no other planet had ever received? Off limits, no exceptions. He should have questioned it more, should have listened to the reports instead of dismissing them as exaggerations, tales spun by paranoid traders who had drifted too close to human territory. Now standing before the impossible, he understood why. The warning had been written. The human flexed his remaining fingers, then clenched them into a fist. The exposed bone in his shoulder made a quiet grinding sound as he shifted his stance. "So, Commander Zyrek," the human said, voice still light, almost amused. "What now?" Zyrek's mandibles clicked together. He had 3 squads still, standing. The rest were dead or incapacitated, mostly because of this one human. The invasion had been effortless up until now. Earth's forces had retreated from every engagement, leaving nothing but empty cities in their wake. And then they had found him. The humans called him a soldier. That was it. No rank, no commendations, no titles, just a soldier, and he had killed dozens. Zyrek had expected him to collapse minutes ago. The sheer blood loss alone should have ended him. But he was still standing, still smiling. Zyrek's second-in-command, Vran, took a cautious step forward, rifle raised. "Commander, orders." The human exhaled. It should have been a quiet sound, but it filled the space between them like a wave. "Yeah, Commander," the human echoed, tilting his head.
"Orders?" Zyrek had seen enough. "We're leaving," he said. A murmur rippled through his remaining troops. Some of them still had their weapons aimed, waiting for the final command to fire. But Zyrek didn't give it. He had no doubt that they could shoot the human again.
They could unload every round they had into him, and he wasn't sure it would matter. The human grunted. "Smart choice." Zyrek's claw twitched toward his belt communicator, sending an encrypted signal to the command ship in orbit. The mission was over. Earth wasn't worth it. The database had been right. The human took a step forward. Zyrek flinched. Then, to his horror, the human lifted his hand, not to attack, not to grab a weapon. He was offering a handshake. Zyrek hesitated. The human smirked. Come on, Commander, I won't bite. Zyrek didn't move. The human's grin widened. Then,
Again? I might. Zyrek turned and marched toward the evacuation point without another word. He refused to look back, but he could feel the human's eyes on him the entire way.
the fleet had barely escaped Earth's orbit when the first distress call came in. Zyrek watched the transmission feed from the command deck, his mandibles tightening as the image flickered. Static washed over the screen, then cleared just enough to reveal a bridge in chaos. The crew of the Varthak, one of the 5 remaining warships in his fleet, were shouting over one another, their voices overlapping in a panic he had never heard before. "This is the Varthak, requesting immediate assistance. Enemy on board. Repeat, enemy on board." Then the signal cut. Silence stretched across the command deck. No one moved. Vran hissed. "That planet has no fleet. There was no pursuit from their forces. We confirmed it." Zyrek said nothing. His mind immediately went to the image burned into his memory. The soldier standing in a field of wreckage, bloodied, broken, but somehow alive. That grin that hadn't wavered, even when he should have been moments from death. Zyrek reached for the console. "Scan for life signatures aboard the Varthak." The ship's AI responded in a clipped tone. "No unauthorized life signs detected." Vran's claws twitched. Then what was that transmission? The lights flickered. The deck trembled. Zyrek turned sharply toward the viewport, expecting an external attack. But space remained still. The stars had not changed. No weapons fire, no debris, no visible enemy. Just the quiet hum of their own ship. Then another transmission came through, but it wasn't from the Varthak. It was from inside their own ship. A single voice. Distorted. Unnatural. Zyrek. Zyrek's claws tapped against the console. "Who
Is this?" No answer, only breathing. Vran stiffened. "Borders. Impossible." Another officer muttered. "We sealed every airlock before departure. There was no time for infiltration. The planet had no ships in pursuit. Nothing could have..." The
Lights flickered again. Zyrek's stomach twisted. "Security team," he ordered. "Sweep the entire ship. Full report in 5 minutes." 4 minutes later, the security captain's voice came through. "Sir, we found something." "Where?" "Deck 7, airlock control. It's, a message." Zyrek exchanged a glance with Vran. "Show me!" The security feed flickered on. The hallway was empty, but the airlock control panel had been forced open. Wires hung loosely from its side, and something had been scrawled across the bulkhead. Zyrek leaned closer. It was written in Galactic Standard. "Not bad," Vran inhaled sharply. "That's..." What he said, Zyrek's mandibles clenched. The human. He turned to the security captain. "Lock down the deck. No one enters or exits without my order." "Yes, sir." The feed cut. Vran took a step back. "How?" Zyrek exhaled through his vents. He didn't know. The human had been on the planet's surface. They had scanned for pursuit. There had been no ships, no anomalies, no breaches in their hull. And yet, somehow, he was here. Zyrek straightened. "Find him!" Then the ship laughed.